In this time of great competition, low inventory, and multiple offers, you'll want to understand what an escalation clause is. And we're going to talk about it right now. Maybe you've been through it, multiple offers, insanity in prices, and maybe you've lost. You'd love to have another tool in your toolkit to give you an advantage. Well, that could well be an escalation clause. And I'm here to explain it to you because it can be pretty confusing. The agreement of sale has a purchase price. This escalation clause language is actually called the Escalation Addendum to the agreement of sale, and you attach it as a part of your offer, but it is a separate document. And in that document, you're stating the incremental extra little bit, well, sometimes a lot, over the highest bona fide offer that they have, up to and not to exceed a maximum that you establish in this clause. It only comes into play when there is, in fact, another offer or multiple offers. I'm going to give you an escalation clause example. Let's say the list price is $500,000, but you have already thought this through and you're willing to pay $525,000. And you will top the highest offer by $1,000. Agreement of sale says $500,000, your incremental extra is $1,000, and your max is $525,000. They get another offer. It's $510,000. So now they will show evidence of that bona fide offer, and therefore you're willing to pay. You've agreed up front. I'll pay you $511,000. Sounds great, right? If you had come in with an offer of $525,000, you would have left $15,000 on the table, so to speak, because the other offer was at $510,000. Sounds great. Why not? Let's do it. Well, there are some factors that are important to know in both the initial offer, the incremental extra, and that maximum price. Let's say the other offer was $520,000. Well, now you would pay $521,000. If they go as high as $524,000, you're safe. You beat them by $1,000. This all, of course, assumes that the seller is picking the highest price as his primary factor, and that's not always the case. We'll talk about that later. Now, you know there are three factors involved in this decision. The initial price. Let's talk about that. I would call it almost standard procedure that the offer price is list price. Right now, we're talking 2022, Southeast PA, a little still insane, low inventory. Offer price, list price. But maybe you should go higher than that. Maybe you should show the seller you really, really want this house. Some people will go in a little higher. All things being equal, the seller has two offers. One came in at list, one came in $10,000 over. They might go with that higher initial offer. The second is that incremental extra. You just don't even know how many people put $1,000, $2,000. I'm going to encourage you to think a little less plain vanilla. Try maybe $1,200, $1,700, $2,200. Something a little different. The other thing to factor in is if you go in at $1,000, is that compelling to the seller? You've had to turn your sofa cushions over to get enough money to go to closing. Your competition has 20% down. Is $1,000 going to be compelling enough to pick your offer over their offer, even though your price is higher? Maybe $5,000 would be more compelling. It really depends on your financial strength, how much extra you would want to go. Then we get to the third factor, which is the maximum price. A lot depends on what you can afford. A lot depends on your willingness to pay perhaps over the value. Depends on your urgency. It depends how much you love the house. It depends how many offers you've lost. It depends on your gut. But truly, you should have some information to help you with that. You want to have your agent look at the area that you're bidding in for similar priced houses. How much higher have they gone? How crazy has it been? What's the highest offer? And I don't mean dollar-wise, but percent-wise. How crazy over list price has it been? Some areas aren't as bad as other areas. And you want to know how relevant was the list price. Was it already crazy? Was it undervalued? That's important to know. That's a conversation and a long thought process for a buyer to decide that maximum price. Now, you've submitted the offer. You know there's competition. The agent is evaluating, and guess what? Someone else has an escalation clause. Well, what does that mean? This is important to know for a seller. How does that all work? Well, it ratchets up to the maximum of both escalation clauses. So, if the other person was willing to escalate up to $520,000, and you were willing to escalate to $525,000, then your whatever extra $1,000 would be added to that $520,000, and you'd end up at $521,000. In the event of multiple escalation clauses, just understand your initial offer is out the window. Everything is, you're comparing all of the max price in the escalation clauses. You also want to understand that as a seller, you need an agent capable of evaluating all of this, because I've come across some that aren't. And they actually did not serve their clients well by escalating off the lower number and not the higher number, which can be a big difference. Now, you might be thinking, why would I show my hand? Why would I tell them how much more over the price I'm willing to pay? And that's a valid concern if there's no competition. Now, you would not use this if you're submitting an offer and you're the only offer. Oh yeah, I'm going to offer you $500, but I'm willing to pay $525. Well, you might expect a negotiation if there's in the absence of another offer. Most agents, in my experience, use these escalations as intended. They compare them, come to the max price. It's actually been rare to not have multiple escalation clauses. But in the absence of another escalation clause, you could be subject to having that seller's agent come back and say, hey, you were willing to pay $525, we want $525. If you're not comfortable with that, with using this clause because it shows your hand, I totally get it. That is your decision. There is the point of view, just give your best offer and let it fly and see where it lands, because then you know you've given it 100%. 100%. You cannot argue that. Are escalation clauses always accepted? No, not always. Some agents say, no, thank you, don't want them. So then you would come in with your best and final highest offer. You have no choice. Are you curious about this escalation form language? I'm happy to share it with you and give you an escalation clause example. Just reach out to me. My information is in the description below. There's one other little wrinkle that can complicate things, that some buyers now are offering to tweak their offer and come up with something unique to cover the transfer tax that the seller would pay, which in most cases is 1%. Your competition maxed out at $500,000 and you maxed out at $503,000. but they are willing to pay the 1% transfer tax. So your purchase price is technically higher, but they're going to pay $5,000 extra dollars. So that brings their net to the seller, if you will, $505, and you're at $503. So it doesn't necessarily hold true that if you get the highest price with your escalation clause, that your net to the seller will be the highest. And in fact, I will tell you, given the choice between two offers that net the same amount to the seller might be inclined to take the one with a lower purchase price who's also paying the transfer tax, because the appraisal is less of an issue, right? In that case we were talking about, it needs to only appraise for $500,000, not $503. If this has been of value to you, give me a like, make a comment below, think about subscribing. I appreciate your being here.